Late at night, inside a prison, a man named Reinhardt is telling a girl not to come closer, except while saying that he is gripping her hand so tightly she cannot even move. So which is it? Does he want distance or not? She starts wondering the same thing. Why is someone who wants her gone holding her so closely? Then he asks if she is alright and tells her to touch him. She stumbles onto him in pure shock and complains that he cannot just grab a girl like that. He quietly says good. Her name is Rosie, and right now, all she can think is, how did things even get to this point? Because I already know this is going to become very troublesome, but let us go back to where it all started. Not long before this, Rosie suddenly opens her eyes in a completely unfamiliar place. She notices the pink hair, the maid uniform, and a pretty face staring back at her from the reflection. Before she can even process any of it, a girl named Emily shows up and shoves a meal into her hands. She is apparently late and needs to feed the monster in the basement. Right now. The word monster makes her pause. She spots the dog bowl sitting there and silently prays that whatever is down there is not too creepy. Emily lectures her about doing her duties quietly, so off she goes to the prison, planning to drop the food and figure everything else out later. The guards warn her to leave immediately after placing the food down, which honestly only makes the whole thing feel worse. She sets the meal down and turns to go. But then a hand reaches out from inside the cell and grabs her. The monster is not a beast. It is a person. He is clearly sick, barely holding himself together, and begging her for medicine he has not taken in days. She finds it in her pocket and is just about to hand it over when Emily reappears out of nowhere, drags her away, and reminds her that giving him anything without permission is strictly forbidden. Now, is she really just going to leave him like that? Well, almost. Because before she goes, Rosie quietly drops the medicine on the ground and tells him to drink it secretly. He stares at her and softly repeats her name. See, she thinks she is just doing a small, kind thing. Nothing major. But right now, she has absolutely no idea that this man will one day become so obsessed with her that he will tell her she cannot go anywhere without his permission. Ever. Yeah, troublesome was an understatement. Rosie and Emily are walking down a hallway together. Emily has a question. She asks if Rosie is really under the monster's spell because she has been acting strange ever since meeting him. Rosie laughs it off and says she was just lost in thought. But inside her head, everything is starting to click. This whole situation feels exactly like a BL novel she once read called Raised by the Mist. In this world, people like him are called transcendentals. They are blessed with extraordinary power, but their human bodies cannot handle it. It feels like lava constantly flowing through their veins. And in the original story, he was kidnapped, chained up, and denied the medicine that could ease his pain. Emily snaps her out of it and tells her to get some rest. But Rosie has one question first. She asks about the master Emily keeps mentioning. Emily says she means Marquise Avantes Argent. That name makes her freeze. It exists in the novel too. At this point, she is starting to believe she has actually landed inside the story. And I already know this situation is about to get very dangerous. The next morning, she heads back to the prison with food. On the way, she thinks through what she knows. Every maid who serves him for 10 days becomes his personal assistant. And every assistant eventually loses their head whenever they try to escape. Since he never stops trying, she needs to avoid becoming his servant at all costs. She arrives, delivers the food, and he thanks her politely, despite eating from a dog bowl. She reminds herself not to be fooled. The original Reinhardt was never kind. He hated everyone in that mansion, and felt nothing when servants died because of him. His politeness now only means he wants something from her. She picks up the bowl and starts heading out. 9 more days. She just needs to survive 9 more days. Then, his hand reaches out and grabs her from behind. He leans in close and tells her he has been wondering about something. He sniffs her hand and asks what perfume she is wearing because the scent is something he cannot stop thinking about. She has no idea how he even got close enough to touch her. Then she looks down. His restraints are completely shattered. She stares at the broken chains on the floor as he calmly repeats his question. Our girl is in serious trouble, and she knows it. He asks again, what perfume is she wearing? Rosie panics. She knows if she reacts too, obviously, he will get suspicious. So she does the first thing that comes to mind. She drops the bowl and pretends to faint, claiming she has anemia and forgot her medicine. That excuse worked better than any of us expected. He believes her. He even catches her before she hits the ground and asks if she is okay. She thanks him, tells him she will explain the perfume another time, and rushes out before he can say anything else. But walking away, her mind is already racing. A high-grade magic restraint does not just break on its own. He must have done it himself. And if he escapes, she is as good as dead. She needs to report this immediately. She spots the head butler in the hallway and rushes over. But the moment he turns around, she forgets everything she is about to say. The man is gorgeous. Soft golden hair, refined features, and green eyes like a forest. She stutters through her report and somehow manages to explain that the chain is broken. He calmly tells her he will look into it. But as she stares at him, something clicks. His appearance matches the exact description of a character from the novel. His name is Argent. She panics internally as he asks for her name. She tells him people call her Rosie. He says she unusually introduced herself and tells her he will remember it. She silently begs him to please forget she exists. With 9 days of meal duty left, Rosie decides the safest move is to watch Reinhardt closely. She returns to the prison and immediately notices his condition. The injuries are bad. And she already knows Argent is responsible. He brushes it off and says they are minor. She feels too guilty to argue, since she was the one who reported the broken chains in the first place. She tells him to wait and heads into the hallway to get ice. That is when she spots another maid nearby, quietly mixing something into the food. She freezes. She recognizes that fruit from the novel. It is called Florent. It triggers dangerous urges in transcendentals. For some, it causes hunger. For others, desire. But for Reinhardt, it brings out a murderous urge to kill. She has to stop it before it reaches him. Rosie knows she is running out of options. If Reinhardt loses control, she is either dead by his hands or executed by the Marquis for failing to manage him. She has to act fast. She walks into the kitchen and tells the head chef she is covering for the usual maid, who sprained her ankle. What she does not mention is that she was the one who tripped her. At least this part is finally working out. The chef does not ask questions. He just points her to a pile of dishes and tells her to get cleaned. Her plan is simple. Stay in the kitchen, watch the food, and make sure nobody slips the Florent fruit into Reinhardt's meals. As long as he stays sane, she stays alive. After a while, the chef hands her some cookies and tells her to eat after she finishes. His tone makes it sound more like an insult than a kind gesture, but she smiles and thanks him anyway. She cannot afford enemies right now. Walking back through the hallway, she reminds herself that there is still another threat hiding in the mansion: the demon worshippers. They are a criminal organization that has operated in the Empire's shadows for years, targeting transcendentals specifically. Reinhardt himself ended up captured because of them. She cannot help him escape, but she can at least keep him from suffering while she is still assigned to him. She arrives at the prison, knocks, and announces his food. He lets her in and mentions she is later than expected. She explains she had things to handle, sets down his meal, and then surprises him with dessert. He immediately gets suspicious. She tells him to relax and just eat. He takes a bite and notices something is different. She says food just tastes different sometimes. What he realizes on the inside is that the drugs usually hidden in his meals are completely gone today. He starts wondering why she is suddenly being so kind. He asks if she is always like this, and she says yes, always kind to patients. He teases her and asks if she is only kind to sick people. She quickly says no, she is kind to everyone. He smiles and calls her a kind maid, but what he does not say out loud is what is really happening inside him. Every time she is near, the pain fades, and his mind becomes clearer. And slowly, something else grows alongside that relief. The desire to keep her close, to keep her entirely to himself. As he watches her sitting beside him, he quietly decides that maybe staying sick is not such a bad idea after all. Rosie brings up the perfume question and tells Reinhardt she checked. She does not wear any. He asks with a straight face if her memory is so bad that she has to confirm whether she wears perfume. She stares at him, then awkwardly admits that yes, her memory is just that bad sometimes. He says he finds her fascinating because her scent feels completely natural, not like perfume at all. Then he apologizes if that makes her uncomfortable. She tells him bluntly to just hold his breath then. He says he will if that is what she wants. She stares at him, wondering if he is actually serious. This guy is becoming stranger every single day. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the mansion, a maid named Marie is furious. She slams her hand on a table and demands to know why the berries never make it into the food. The nervous maid explains that the girl on meal duty never takes her eyes off her. Marie realizes they are talking about Rosie. She orders the maid not to fail again tomorrow, but the maid hesitates and adds another problem. Rosie apparently tells the chef she plans to keep coming to the kitchen because she admires his cooking. Marie stares. Her plans are getting harder to pull off. Back in the hallway, Rosie and Emily are working together when Emily mentions something interesting. The Hertas Count family is searching for their missing daughter, and the bounty is worth the price of an entire mansion. Rosie freezes the moment she hears that name. She knows it from the novel. The missing daughter is connected to Yuria Hertas, the obsessive second male lead whose hatred for Argent eventually twists into something much darker. Emily adds that there are no portraits of the girl, but she supposedly has pink hair and pink eyes. Rosie's entire body goes stiff. That is her. She is the missing daughter. Before she can even process that, a group of maids approaches and offers to take over her meal duties. How sweet. Except these are the same maids who used to push every difficult task onto someone else. She smiles, thanks them, and firmly refuses. They eventually give up and leave. Emily whispers that something felt off. Rosie completely agrees. She rushes to deliver the meal before she is late. The gatekeeper greets her warmly as she enters. But the moment she steps inside the cell, she stops. Reinhardt is on the floor, badly beaten, his clothes shredded, and wounds covering his body. She suspects Argent at first, but something does not add up. She studies the injuries more carefully. These are not blade cuts or bruises from a beating. They look like marks from something long, dragging repeatedly across his skin. She slowly turns toward the gatekeeper, standing nearby, and a terrible suspicion begins to form in her mind. Rosie pieces it together quickly. Argent would never leave serious marks on Reinhardt because he treasures beautiful things. That means the gatekeeper is responsible for the injuries. But that makes no sense either. Even in chains, Reinhardt is strong enough to overpower an ordinary guard easily. So why did he just sit there and take it? Before she can figure that out, he weakly tells her he is in pain. She asks if she should get medicine. He asks if that is really her idea of being kind to patients. She looks at him, and something shifts. His eyes, usually calm, now feel like a raging sea, deep and dangerous. He tells her that her scent is unlike anything else. Every time he breathes it in, the pain disappears without any medicine at all. She holds it together on the outside, but inside, she is thinking the same thing. If she had met this man anywhere outside of these chains, she would have been in serious trouble. She tells him it is good if the pain stops, and leaves it at that. But she decides quietly that she cannot keep watching him get hurt like this. If he loses control, they are both finished. The next day, Rosie sets herself up near the prison entrance. Emily asks if she is seriously planning to stay there all day. She shrugs and says, why not? Reinhardt mentions the head maid already approved it. Emily gives up arguing and heads off, but not before reminding her that mealtime is starting. Rosie turns to the gatekeeper and politely asks for a favor. She is already thinking 3 steps ahead. Later, she and Emily head to the dining hall, only to find no food left for them. Marie stands there looking unbothered, blaming the kitchen staff and suggesting Rosie must have caught a curse from the monster. Rosie does not take the bait quietly. She points out that insulting someone brought into the mansion by the Marquis is practically insulting the Marquis himself. Marie calls it nonsense. Rosie grabs Emily and walks out. After that, Marie shifts to quieter tactics. Spilled juice on her apron. Small inconveniences designed to make her late. Nothing bold enough to get her in trouble, but enough to be exhausting. With only 4 days of meal duty left, Rosie is running on patience she does not have. She delivers his meal and asks where it hurts. He says his stomach feels strange and asks her to nurse him. She tells him he will be fine on his own. He reminds her that she promised to be kind to Patience. She tells him to eat. He asks softly if she hates him. She says yes, without missing a beat. He jokes that her honesty is painful. She says that it is fine since she is not the one getting hurt. Then he says something that stops her cold. He repeats her own words back to her. That familiar food sometimes tastes different. Her face changes immediately. His symptoms match Florent poisoning again, even though she watched the food the entire time. Then it hits her. Florent does not work instantly. It builds up in the body over time. Before she can react, he lunges forward and pins her to the ground. His face is dangerously close. And when she looks into his eyes, the clarity is completely gone. Reinhardt's entire body is burning, his heart is pounding, and violent thoughts are flooding his mind. He stares at Rosie, and for a moment, he genuinely considers killing her, slowly, just to make the pain stop. But he forces himself to pull back. She is still useful. He cannot touch her yet. He lets out a broken sound instead. And just like that, the moment passes. Rosie releases a breath she did not know she was holding. His expression a second ago was not a bluff. He was really looking at her like prey. She is just grateful the restraints are still holding, because without them, she would already be dead. She starts replaying everything in her head, trying to figure out how the Florent got into his food when she was watching the whole time. She is almost certain Marie is behind it. And across the mansion, Marie is sitting pretty, convinced her plan worked perfectly. She has no idea what is coming. Rosie walks straight up to her and greets her cheerfully. Marie jumps, then demands to know what she wants. Rosie tells her she heard Marie give great advice and just wanted to ask about something. That is all it takes. Marie's ego does the rest, and she agrees to listen. Rosie calmly explains she has been having strange dreams where she keeps seeing someone slip things into the food. She asks innocently if she might have made an enemy somehow. Marie gets visibly irritated and then says it out loud. That Rosie has no proof. She did not even realize she had just confessed. Rosie points it out immediately. Marie panics and denies everything. But Rosie does not argue. She just grabs her by the arm and drags her straight to the head butler. Once they are all standing together, the head butler questions Marie and the kitchen maid directly. The maid claims she only thought the ingredient would improve the flavor. But Rosie already had Emily and the head chef witness the ingredient swap the day before. Emily steps forward with a plant guide and identifies exactly what was used. When the head butler asks if Rosie figured it all out herself, Emily says yes, without hesitation. Rosie wanted Emily to take the credit. That plan failed completely. The kitchen maid breaks down and confesses. Marie paid her to drug the meals because her sibling was sick and she needed the money. Marie screams that it is all a setup, but she cannot explain why the maid would randomly choose to frame her. The head butler has heard enough. He orders the kitchen maid to a detention cell and confines Marie to her room pending further investigation. Rosie thinks that at least this will make things easier for whoever takes over meal duty next. But before she can feel relieved, the head butler calls her name and asks if she would be interested in becoming Reinhardt's dedicated lady-in-waiting. She just stares at him. Emily has noticed something. Rosie is different from when she first arrived. Back then, she always seemed tired and guarded. Now there is something sharper about her. Emily does not dislike it, but she is worried. Things around Rosie keep getting more dangerous. And Rosie just turned down the offer to become Reinhardt's exclusive attendant. Meanwhile, Marie is seething. She vents to the gatekeeper, who nervously tells her to keep her voice down. He even makes the mistake of asking why she is so obsessed with tormenting Rosie in the first place. Marie turns on him immediately, accusing him of taking Rosie's side over his own lover. He apologizes quickly. Then she lays out her new plan. If poison shows up in the monster's food again while she is locked in her room, nobody can blame her. She tells the gatekeeper to do it. He hesitates. Then I agreed. Somewhere deep in the prison, Reinhardt listens to all of this and thinks things are getting interesting. The next morning, Rosie is heading to the dungeon with a food tray when a strange man approaches her. He acts overly familiar, grabs the tray, and pretends to feel sorry for how exhausted she must be. She takes the tray back calmly and tells him it is not difficult work. He keeps pushing. She asks if he plans to do the job for her instead. He has no answer. But while talking to him, she realizes something. This was a distraction. The gatekeeper must have slipped something into the food while she was held up. She tries to leave, but the man stops her and asks why she calls the prisoner a person instead of a monster. She tells him simply that if something has a name, she will use it. She does not know his proper title, so she says the person inside. The man walks away irritated. She enters the prison, and Reinhardt immediately asks if she really sees him as human. She says yes, biologically speaking. Something shifts in his expression. He goes quiet for a moment before agreeing with her. She sets the tray down and accidentally drops the whole plate. She stares at it on the floor, genuinely unsure if she dropped it from nerves or because she was distracted looking at him. He says calmly that he is disappointed. She panics and offers to get another meal. He tells her she is duller than he expected. She asks if he is seriously picking a fight over a dropped plate. He smiles and says no. He just does not like seeing her flustered. Then he asks if she noticed anything strange outside. She mentions the man. Reinhardt tells her the stranger was a deliberate distraction. She demands to know what happened. Across the mansion, Marie is waiting anxiously for news. Then a maid bursts in, saying the monster collapsed and poison was found in his food. The whispers spread fast. Marie was locked in her room all day. She could not have done it. And just like that, the suspicion lands somewhere else entirely. The head butler calls Rosie to kneel and explain herself. Marie watches from a distance, satisfied, certain that Rosie is finally finished. But Rosie kneels quietly with her head down, thinking the complete opposite. Because she already knows she has won. Rosie stands near Reinhardt, trying to figure out her next move. She asks what he means by drawing attention. He tells her he will only explain if she does something for him first. She immediately says she will do anything except help him escape. He accepts that, and then makes his request. He wants her to pay attention to him instead of only watching the gatekeeper. She stares at him. He completely misunderstood why she was watching the gate. She tells him that it is unfair and asks whose fault he thinks that is. He finally explains. The strange man from earlier was sent deliberately to distract her while medicine slipped into his food. Marie visited during the night, and the gatekeeper helped by sending someone to keep Rosie occupied. At this point, I would lose my mind too. Rosie is done being patient. She says she refuses to keep quietly enduring this. Reinhardt tells her calmly that they should return the scheme exactly as it was given. He even offers to help her take revenge. She thinks about the whipping she saw him take from the gatekeeper earlier and asks about it. He admits he let it happen on purpose. He needed to keep up the sick patient act after she said she was kind to patients. She stares at him. This man is absolutely unhinged. But he is also exactly what she needs right now. Back in the mansion, chaos breaks out. The maids are accusing Rosie of poisoning the monster and working with the kitchen maid all along. Emily rushes to her side, begging her to say something. Rosie stays quiet. The head butler questions the gatekeeper, who claims nothing unusual happened during the morning delivery. Rosie simply says she knows nothing about it. The head butler pushes harder, pointing out that very few people had access to the food. She defends the head chef firmly and asks the head butler directly if he truly believes she is guilty. He tells her he is not interested in arguments and demands the truth. Instead of backing down, Rosie turns to Marie and asks why she would poison someone when neither of them would survive if he died. Marie panics internally but recovers quickly. She accuses Rosie of staging the whole thing to frame her and points out how convenient the timing is. Then the head butler asks one quiet question. How does Marie already know the substance was a fruit? That detail was never made public. Marie freezes. Emily steps in and explains that Rosie had already shown the head butler a botanical encyclopedia with that exact fruit the day before. Marie has nothing left to say. The head butler has her dragged out along with the gatekeeper. Rosie admits to herself that she pushed things this far on purpose. Without hard evidence, a confession was the only way to end it cleanly. Marie is expelled from the household. The gatekeeper is taken for questioning. Rosie finally exhales. But before she can enjoy even a second of peace, Reinhardt moves closer and quietly asks if he may take it off. She goes completely still, wondering what on earth is about to happen next. Rosie stares at Reinhardt, trying to process what he just asked. He wants to take something off. She immediately questions whether getting beaten has secretly become his hobby, since she watched him let the gatekeeper hit him on purpose earlier. He says no, and casually offers to let her hit him instead. She declines. He sighs like she just disappointed him. He explains he only wants to check her shoulder. She asks why. He says he will explain after. She is not sure what he is planning, but she agrees. He looks genuinely surprised she said yes. When she asks why he is not untying the clothing himself, he asks why she agreed so easily. She tells him confidently that she could take him down instantly if he tried anything. Plus, where she comes from, a shoulder is just a shoulder. The moment he reaches toward her, his expression shifts. After a pause, he tells her that demon worshippers carry a branded mark near the shoulder blade as a sign of devotion. She goes cold inside. He suspected her this entire time. He tells her calmly that he has now confirmed she has no connection to them. She calls his explanation vague and asks if her scent was what made him suspicious. He admits it was. He thought the demon worshippers might be trying something new. She calls him terrifying and points out that today is literally her last day of meal duty, and he was still investigating her. I would be exhausted dealing with someone this suspicious every day. The moment she remembers today is her last day. Her whole mood lifts. Reinhardt notices immediately and asks why she suddenly looks so happy. She avoids the question and shoves a pile of potatoes into his hands instead. She tells him to peel them. She made a deal to stay near him in exchange for information about Marie, so she is making herself comfortable. She even promises to boil them later if he does a good job. He stares at her, clearly unable to believe she is putting a prisoner to work. Then Emily comes sprinting toward the prison in a panic. Reinhardt tells Rosie she should go. She tells him to finish the potatoes before she gets back, and promises to consider a reward if he does well. Outside, Emily asks in disbelief why she and the monster are suddenly so friendly. Rosie brushes it off and asks what the emergency is. Emily tells her. The Marquis has personally requested her for bedchamber service. Rosie takes off toward the second floor immediately, with Emily chasing after her the whole way. Back in the prison, Reinhardt quietly repeats the words bedchamber service to himself. She reaches the Marquis's room, still arguing internally about how nothing in her life is going according to plan. She knocks and introduces herself. The man inside welcomes her and mentions they have already met. She looks at him, and her stomach drops. It is the beautiful man she mistook for the head butler. He was the Marquis the entire time. She screams internally. There is no way someone who looks like that is just a servant. She apologizes for not recognizing him. He brushes it off and gets straight to the point. He asks why she rejected the offer to become Reinhardt's exclusive maid. She says it was not because of the monster rumors. He asks why then, since she clearly proved herself capable. Rosie realizes she spent so much energy avoiding one disaster that she walked straight into another one. But she keeps her composure and tells him she plans to leave the estate soon. She has been saving up for something since childhood. He asks what that dream is. She looks at him and answers with one word: marriage. Argent repeats the word marriage as he has never heard anything more unusual. He tells her casually that if marriage is what she wants, she can just pick any man in the mansion and he will hand him over. Rosie panics internally. He is talking about her like she is livestock. She keeps her composure and tells him firmly that she wants to marry someone she actually loves. He looks at her and says coldly that love is pointless. It never lasts. Sooner or later, it fades and leaves nothing but misery behind. She is not surprised. She already knew from the novel that Argent never received real love growing up. His parents neglected him completely, and he eventually convinced himself it was because he was not beautiful enough. He was wrong, but that wound never healed. It just twisted into something else entirely. Honestly, I saw that sadness in him coming from a mile away. She admits gently that maybe love does not last forever. But humans are irrational, and she still wants to make that foolish choice anyway. He shifts the conversation and asks when she plans to leave. She says within 15 days. He walks away slowly and brings up the broken chain she reported weeks ago. She braces herself. Then he tells her casually that he was the one who broke it. She asks immediately why he then twisted Reinhardt's ankle if he caused the problem himself. He explains that a broken chain would never have been enough to stop him anyway, especially in his condition. Then he asks why she has not been requesting mana suppressors recently. She freezes. She has been giving Reinhardt small doses herself, but nowhere near enough to explain the improvement in his condition. She still does not fully understand how her presence affects him. She keeps all of that to herself and tells Argent she honestly does not know. He accepts the answer without pushing further, privately reminding himself she is just a maid and would not understand transcendental conditions anyway. She sees her opening and politely announces she will be leaving. He stops her immediately. She was assigned to his bedchamber tonight. That is what bedchamber service means. She freezes completely. Then she apologizes and explains she was never told, does not belong to the regular rotation, and asks if he just needs the sheets changed or the room cleaned. He stares at her for a long moment. Then he tells her to get out. She walks out and celebrates internally like she just survived a war. Later that night, the former gatekeeper is moving through the dark outside the mansion. He is relieved to be alive and wants nothing more than to collect his payment and disappear. He finds a hidden house deep in the woods and knocks. A mysterious man whose name is Yuria welcomes him inside and says he is glad he made it out safely. The gatekeeper thanks him for the help. The man waves it off and says he found something far more interesting in the report. He asks about the girl named Rosie, who exposed everything. Another man in the room nervously suggests she is probably just someone with the same name. The mysterious figure shuts him down immediately. He turns back to the gatekeeper and asks him to describe her. Pink hair, pink eyes, sharp features, a strange aura around her. The man listens quietly and then smiles. He leans back and says that his little sister has apparently been causing some surprisingly cute trouble lately. Back in the wooden house, the servant quietly informs Yuria that everything has been handled. The gatekeeper's body has been buried. Yuria asks if it was done neatly, and the servant confirms it before asking if they should head back to the territory. Yuria does not answer right away. He remembers the upcoming banquet at Marquis Cervantes' mansion. When the servant asks if he plans to attend, he says he does not care about slaves or noble gatherings. He just wants to see his sister. He looks out into the darkness and admits quietly that his patience is wearing thin. Back with Rosie, a memory surfaces without warning. She sees a young girl being introduced by a man who decides her original name sounds too plain and renames her Rose Hertas on the spot. Later, the same girl is quietly picking flowers in the garden when a boy throws a stone at her head and tells her to lower her eyes and get lost. Instead of backing down, she tells him to get lost. The boy is furious. Just before things turn worse, Yuria appears and steps in. After the other boy leaves, Yuria approaches her, expecting a thank you. She tells him to leave too. She does not want to see either of them. He grabs her face calmly and tells her that her attitude is not acceptable. Rosie jolts awake. It was a nightmare, but it was also a memory. Not hers, the original owner's. The next morning, Emily takes one look at her face and asks if she slept badly. Rosie says she had a nightmare. Inside her head, everything is connecting. She is the older sister of the novel's obsessive second male lead. I saw that coming. She pieces together the rest. The original Rosie was not blood related to the Hertas family, was treated badly enough to run away, and took a maid job just to survive. That means if anyone finds her and drags her back, she is in serious danger. She needs to get out before that happens. She even considers dyeing her hair once she reaches another region. She brings up the missing daughter bounty with Emily casually, asking if there is a portrait. Emily says no. The second young master refused to let anyone display his sister's face publicly. Rosie thinks about that for a moment. She is not sure yet whether that is good or bad for her. She tells Emily she only asked because the bounty money sounded tempting. Meanwhile, in the prison, Reinhardt has been paying attention. He has noticed that whenever Rosie is near, the pain from his mana decreases. He suspected at first that she might be connected to the demon worshippers. But after confirming she had no brand mark and watching how carelessly she treated him, he dropped that theory entirely. She is just an insolent woman who looks at him like an ordinary person. He even thinks about the potatoes. She made him peel potatoes and somehow managed to make him genuinely smile despite everything. He sits with that thought for a moment. Then he makes a decision. He needs her close. If he escapes this prison, he is taking her with him. He just needs to close the distance slowly first. Before he can think further, there is a knock at the prison door. A nervous maid named Ella introduces herself as the new one assigned to meal duty. Reinhardt stares at her. Rosie is not coming back. The head butler calls Rosie in and asks if it is true she is resigning. Argent must have already told him. She confirms it. He points out that positions like this are hard to come by, and leaving without a letter of recommendation would make things difficult. He asks why she is quitting. She tells him simply that she is ready to settle down, get married, and start a family. He nods and mentions she is at the right age, 23, and admits it is a pity because he had hoped she would take the dedicated lady-in-waiting position. She tells him he will find someone suitable soon enough. He thanks her for her hard work, and she thanks him in return. Before she can breathe, Ella bursts into the room in a panic and begs Rosie to swap meal duties with her. She is terrified of the monster and offers to do all of Rosie's work the next day in exchange. Edward reminds her that it is her assigned turn. Ella ignores him and keeps pleading, even bringing up the fact that the head butler offered Rosie the dedicated attendant position. Rosie tells her the meal sheet cannot just be passed around, and that she has no intention of going back. Ella turns dramatic and accuses her of being the reason she is stuck with the duty in the first place. The argument escalates until the head butler steps in and shuts it down, reminding Ella that everyone else has managed their duties without complaints. Rosie quietly hands Ella a plate of potatoes. Ella stares at it and asks what it is. Rosie tells her the man inside seems to enjoy peeling them. Give him that, and he should stay calm. Ella and the head butler exchange a look. Later, Ella finds Rosie and thanks her. She says Rosie was right, he really does like the potatoes. Then she pauses and looks down at the plate with a puzzled expression, wondering why they are all chopped up so unevenly. In another scene, Yuria stands outside the castle dressed up and asks Asil if the outfit suits him. Asil says it does. Yuria wonders quietly if his sister would like it too. Asil stays silent. Yuria notices immediately and asks what that reaction means. Asil admits honestly that he does not actually believe that the maid is Yuria's sister. Yuria tells him his opinion is irrelevant. Asil tries again and says this is not just a personal matter. And he is right. Yuria has been searching for his sister ever since she disappeared 2 years ago without a single clue. He eventually put a bounty on her, despite the risk, but all it brought back was false information. Then a report came in about a pink-haired woman working at the Avantes Marquisate. Given his obsession, there was no way he was not going to follow up on that immediately. But there is also something else at stake. Yuria needs to make a good impression on Marquis Argent, who controls imperial land usage. Securing mining rights through him could help Yuria reclaim his position in the family succession after being pushed out for angering the family head. Asil thinks to himself that managing Yuria is exhausting. He asks what happens if the maid turns out not to be his sister. Kill her, Yuria says without hesitating. Asil points out that killing a maid from another household could be seen as an insult to the Marquisate. Yuria says she dared to deceive him. Asil gives up trying to reason with him and wonders privately what is so special about this sister. Meanwhile, Rosie has just heard the name Yuria Hertas, and her blood runs cold. The obsessive second male lead is here, in person, and she is his non-blood-related sister who ran away. If he finds her, it is over. No leads, no portraits, nothing, and yet somehow he is standing right here. Emily appears beside her and asks if something is wrong. Rosie tells her she has a phobia of crowds and feels nauseous around too many people. Emily looks surprised and says she never mentioned that before. Rosie asks if she can retire for the night and make up for it tomorrow. Emily tells her to go rest and not push herself. Rosie turns and walks away quickly. She needs to get out now. Then she walks straight into someone. The man rounds on her immediately and demands to know if she has any idea who she just bumped into. Emily rushes over, apologizing and explaining that Rosie is unwell. The man says he does not care about a sick wretch. Before the situation gets worse, Argent appears. He addresses the man calmly and points out that raising his voice on such a fine occasion would only ruin the mood he worked hard to create. The man backs down immediately and apologizes. Argent tells Emily to take Rosie to her room at once. Emily thanks him. As Rosie is led away, she realizes something that makes her stomach drop. In that moment of chaos, her eyes met Yuria's. Emily checks on Rosie and says it is a relief that the Marquis stepped in when he did. Rosie tells her she is fine, but her mind is racing. She and Yuria made eye contact. Argent's interruption bought her time, but she does not think it will be enough. She tells Emily to head back inside and that she will return to her room alone. Emily hesitates but agrees and tells her to call if anything happens. Rosie turns and walks away, then a voice calls out from behind her. Miss Maid, or should I call you Lady Hertas? She turns around. A man named Asil is approaching. She tells him he has the wrong person. He says his master does not think so. He delivers the message calmly. Yuria will be coming to see her shortly. She is not going to sleep tonight. With that, he turns and leaves. Rosie stands there, and her hands will not stop shaking. She knows this is the original Rosie's instincts reacting. fight or flight, and everything in her is screaming to run. But running without a plan means getting caught immediately. She needs somewhere Yuria cannot reach, somewhere safe. Then she thinks of the prison. She almost laughs at herself, running from a wolf straight into a tiger's den. But the gatekeeper is asleep, and Reinhardt has not decided to attack her yet. Between those two options, she chooses the tiger. She opens the prison gate and walks in. Reinhardt looks up and asks why she is only coming now. He tells her to come closer. She says she does not want to. He points out she is not even his meal attendant anymore and asks why she is here. Before she can answer, he reaches out and pulls her toward him. She ends up with her head against his chest. He says, "Fine," and then casually asks what she did to Ella that morning. Rosie asks who Ella is. He tells her the maid who brought his meals today. He says he did not do anything serious. She was bad-mouthing Rosie in front of him, so he glared at her. Rosie says that explains why Ella came back shaking like a leaf. She asks if he sees himself as some kind of villain. He tells her he does not treat just anyone this way, only her. And if she makes a disgusted face, it hurts him. She says maybe it is better if she just backs off then. He tells her they need to get closer. She asks why. He says because he thinks he will be seeing her for a long time. She has no idea what he means by that. Then he asks her directly, can she help him escape? She stares at him. He tells her to name anything she wants. He will grant any wish if she helps him get out. Rosie thinks fast. In the original story, Reinhardt never asked anyone for help escaping. He did it alone. So why is he asking her now? Did something in the story already change without her realizing it? This is not just a death flag. He is pointing it directly at her. She stands up and tells him she will pretend she never heard that. She will not tell the Marquis, but he is never to bring it up again. She does not want to die doing something reckless. Then she walks out. Back in her room, her mind is made up. She needs to leave tonight. The Marquisate is no longer safe. She will go to the nearest village, find somewhere to stay until daylight, then take a ship out of the capital and figure out the rest from there. She starts packing immediately. She slips outside, staying away from the guards. With everyone busy preparing for the banquet, security is thinner than usual. She moves quickly. She is almost clear. Then arms wrap around her from behind. Got you. She spins around. Yuria is standing right there, smiling. Yuria pulls her close and says he finally found her. Rosie's chest tightens immediately. Even his touch makes her skin crawl. He looks straight into her eyes and asks why she ran away. He reminds her that he told her they should enter the academy together, that she refused, and that he went alone. Then she disappeared entirely. He says she is the first person who has ever pushed his patience this far. He tells her it is time to come home. Rosie looks at him and asks who he thinks he is. Yuria blinks, clearly caught off guard. She tells him firmly that she is not going back. If someone has been thrown away, they should have the sense to stay away. Yuria's expression shifts. He warns her quietly not to provoke him. Rosie feels something strange at that moment. Despite how uncomfortable she is, her mind is surprisingly calm. The original Rosie always stood her ground when pushed. Maybe that stubbornness is bleeding through. Either way, escaping comes first. She tells him she likes it here and will never go back. Yuria smiles and calls her cruel. He says she abandoned him, but he has no intention of letting her go. He grabs her hand. She tells him to let go. He asks if she knows how miserable the past 2 years were without her. She tells him she has no idea how comfortable she was. He says that even after taking the mana suppressor again, being apart from her made everything worse. Rosie freezes. Mana suppressor. She had forgotten. Yuria is a transcendental too, one of the few who could stand on equal footing with Reinhardt. And he just said the same thing Reinhardt said about her scent easing his pain. She thought Reinhardt was just saying that to manipulate her into helping him escape. But what if it was actually true? Before she can process any of that, Yuria says he will have shackles prepared when they return home so she can never run again. Rosie thinks to herself that this is somehow worse than any death flag she has encountered so far. Someone even more unhinged than Argent has just shown up, and he wants to chain her to his side for the rest of her life. Then a voice cuts through the tension. "What are you doing, grabbing my maid?" Argent appears and tells Yuria that if he has urges, he should take them elsewhere and not cause a scene at his event. Yuria starts to explain that this person is actually his sister. Rosie immediately jumps in and announces loudly that the young master must be terribly drunk. Yuria tries to call her sister again. She says he keeps calling her that, which only proves how drunk he is. Argent looks at Yuria calmly and says he has heard of his reputation and knows his sister has gone missing. He tells him it would be troublesome to mistake his maid for her, and says he will overlook the drunk behavior this once. He tells him to let her go. Rosie thinks to herself that striking first was absolutely the right move. Nice one, Argent. Yuria asks what Argent means by his maid. Argent says the girl is somewhat special to him. She is the one who attends to him in his bedroom. Both Yuria and Rosie go stiff at the same time. Rosie screams internally. He is saying that because she almost changed his bedsheets once. Now, Yuria is going to completely misunderstand the situation. Yuria turns to her and asks what the meaning of this is. His eyes have already gone somewhere dangerous. Argent tells him again that she is his maid, not his sister, and that he still has not come to his senses. Rosie says quietly that she would like to leave. Yuria calls out to her one last time and reaches for her hand, but then stops. He says if that is truly her wish, he will step back. But she should look forward to what comes next. Then he tells Argent he will see him again and walks away. Rosie turns to Argent and thanks him. He says he simply dislikes others touching what belongs to him. She is grateful, even if being called property is incredibly annoying. Then he looks down at the bag she is carrying and asks what that filthy thing is. She stares at him. He just called her bag trash. The next morning, Rosie sits in her room, having not slept at all. She replays everything in her head. She could not escape. Uria's parting words still do not make sense. And honestly, she is not sure she wants to know what he meant. One thing is clear though, leaving the Mark estate right now is impossible. The moment she steps outside, Yuria will be waiting. She is completely trapped. She decides to find the head butler after breakfast and postpone her resignation. Emily walks in and asks how she is doing. Rosie says she is fine after getting some rest. Emily looks at her and says she does not look fine at all. Meanwhile, in another room, Asil looks exhausted and asks Yuria what on earth he is thinking by deciding to stay at the Marquisate. Yuria tells him it is none of his concern. He still has something to take care of. Asil stares at him and wonders what could have happened last night to make him act this suddenly. Yuria calls his name and tells him there is something he needs to do. And in his mind, Yuria has already made his decision. If she says she does not want to come home, then he will simply have to make sure she has no choice. Back at the prison, Reinhardt calls Ella over and asks for a small favor. He hands her a plate of potatoes and tells her to boil them nicely and deliver them to the pink-haired maid. He makes sure she does not forget to mention they are from him. Then he thinks to himself that perhaps it is time to go and meet the maid in person. Meanwhile, Emily and Rosie are walking down the hallway. Emily suggests resting more if she is still tired. Rosie says she cannot be a burden. Besides, if she keeps hiding in her room, she will not get to eat. Yuria is still somewhere in the mansion and is definitely watching. Better to move around normally and keep an eye on things than to stay hidden and look suspicious. Ella appears in the hallway and asks how Rosie is feeling. Rosie says she is better after resting. Ella smiles and holds out a plate of boiled potatoes. She says the monster asked her to deliver them. Emily leans in and notices that every single potato has a little smiley face carved into it. Rosie stares at the plate. She just rejected his request to help him escape, and he responded by sending her potatoes with smiley faces. She genuinely cannot tell if this man is sweet or completely unhinged. Somewhere in the prison, Reinhardt has already made his move. He spent his time studying the restraints carefully despite the pain burning through his mana core, and now the shackles are broken. He thinks to himself that the sound of the impact was probably heard outside, which means people will come rushing soon. He needs to find the maid before that happens. If she had just agreed to help him, things would have been much simpler. His proposal was impulsive, but he meant every word. As long as she stayed close, the pain would ease. She is the most useful thing he has encountered in a long time. She rejected him, which he expected, but the distance between them right now is not something he is willing to accept. If he takes her with him when he runs, that distance disappears. He corrects himself quietly, not talking. Kidnapping is probably the more accurate word. Back in the hallway, a loud sound shakes the mansion. A maid screams that there was an explosion in the basement. The monster has escaped. Everyone is told to evacuate immediately. Emily grabs Rosie and tells her to run. Rosie says she is going to check the situation first. Emily stares at her in disbelief and tells her she needs to evacuate too. Rosie is already moving. Emily calls after her and runs as fast as she can in the opposite direction. Rosie moves through the chaos, thinking hard. In the original story, Reinhardt escaped much later, and only after a series of events involving Argent. For it to happen now, this early, means something has changed. She changed it. Her interference in the original plot has already shifted the timeline. And with Yuria's relationship with Argent now complicated after last night, things are starting to unravel in ways she cannot predict. Then she hears a maid screaming nearby, begging for her life. Reinhardt stands in front of her and tells her calmly that she has nothing to fear as long as she answers one question. Has she seen a pink-haired maid anywhere? The maid cries that she does not know. He tells her that it is not the answer he is looking for. Rosie stands frozen not far away, hidden from his view. He is actively searching for her in the middle of an escape. He could be caught at any moment, and he is still looking. She wonders briefly if he wants revenge for her refusing him. Then she tells herself to focus and starts looking for a way out. The maid finally says she thinks she saw the pink-haired maid heading toward the stables. Reinhardt asks if she is certain. The maid says yes. Rosie thinks to herself that she is standing right here. She starts moving quietly, using the distraction to slip away. Then her foot snaps a branch under her. The sound carries. Reinhardt turns immediately. Rosie thinks one thing. She is in serious trouble. Inside the castle, Yuria calls over the head butler and asks his name. The man introduces himself as Pram. Before Yuria can say anything further, a strange sound echoes through the halls. Pram excuses himself immediately to investigate. A maid rushes over and tells him in a panic that the monster in the basement has escaped. Yuria overhears every word. Asil mutters that he was told the prisoner was bound with mana restraints. He knew vaguely from spy reports that the Marquis was keeping a transcendental hidden, but the timing could not be worse. Of all moments for an escape, it had to happen while his master was here. Pram asks where the monster is now. The maid says he is wandering the grounds looking for a pink-haired maid. Yuria's expression changes instantly. He turns to Asil and tells him to bring his sword. Asil barely has time to react before Yuria is already moving. Nobody is taking his sister from him, not today. Outside, Reinhardt stands near the bushes and calmly tells whoever is hiding there that it would be better to come out quietly. He offers them the choice of coming to him or having him come to them. Rosie crouches behind the bush, thinking fast. He does not know it is her yet, but if he gets any closer, he will catch her scent and figure it out immediately. She decides to run. He tells her she will regret that. She runs anyway. Then something hits her all at once. Her legs stop responding. The air feels like it is being pulled from her lungs, and her entire body feels like it is being torn apart from the inside. She coughs and screams. This is the power of a transcendental, and it is nothing like she imagined. Reinhardt walks over and looks down at her. He says he was wondering who it was. Then he tells her she may breathe again. She gasps and clutches her chest. She genuinely thought she was going to die. He crouches beside her and asks why she was avoiding him. She tells him it should be obvious. He looks genuinely puzzled. Then he leans his face close to hers and tells her calmly that she looks beautiful even when she is crying. He says he always imagined it, but seeing it in person is even better. Rosie stares at him. First Yuria yesterday, and now this man. She must have done something truly terrible in a past life. He tells her that finding her like this must be fate. She tells him it feels more like a trap. She asks directly if he was looking for her to kill her. He looks almost offended and asks why he would ever do that. She asks again why he was looking for her then. He says simply because it is fate. She thinks to herself that someone needs to punch this man immediately. He tells her he has come to take her with him. She says she would like to refuse. He says she does not have that option. She confirms out loud that this is a kidnapping. He holds out his hand and tells her there is no time. She asks what happens if she refuses. He tells her she needs him right now more than she realizes, and that if she comes with him, he will give her whatever she wants. She smiles flatly and calls him the most generous soul she has ever met. But inside, she is already calculating. She considered using Reinhardt to escape Yuria, but his reasons for wanting her are no different from Yuria's. And if she escapes with him and things go wrong, she could still end up dead at Argent's hands eventually. She would just be collecting more enemies. Then a wall explodes. Yuria steps through the gap with his sword drawn and says he found her. Rosie stares at the destroyed wall. He sliced straight through it. Yuria looks at Reinhardt and then back at her and says an intruder has appeared between them. Rosie thinks to herself that nobody is between anything. She and Reinhardt are on a feed the monster basis at most. Yuria tells Reinhardt that the Marquis would be very pleased to have his escaped prisoner returned. Then he tells Rosie to come to him. Reinhardt glances at her and repeats the word sister with quiet curiosity. Rosie says loudly that the young master must be drinking again. Reinhardt tells her it sounds like they are already well acquainted and says he is quite jealous she was meeting another man behind his back. She tells him to stop saying things he does not mean. Yuria points his sword at Reinhardt and tells his sister that she has been associating with something beneath her in his absence. Reinhardt settles into a fighting stance. The tension between the two of them is immediate and suffocating. Rosie looks between them and thinks that this is exactly what it feels like to be a shrimp caught between two whales. And there is nobody here to protect the shrimp. She has to figure this out herself. She starts looking around quickly. Then her eyes land on something. That is it. Rosie spots a log of wood on the ground and grabs it. Both Yuria and Reinhardt turn to look at her. She points it at both of them and tells them not to take another step. Reinhardt looks genuinely impressed. She warns them that the first one who moves is getting hit in the head. Yuria tells her she is holding it correctly and encourages her to swing it the moment the monster gets close. She tells him he is not exempt either. She needs to end this now before her heart gives out entirely. She turns to Reinhardt and tells him the Marquis will arrive with Knights soon. If he is planning to run, he should do it alone and stop wasting time on her. He tells her she is underestimating him. Then Yuria suddenly shouts at her to dodge. Before she can react, Reinhardt appears right beside her and pulls her against him. She did not even see him move. She thinks to herself that she is really about to be dragged away like this. Then something shifts. Reinhardt still goes. He presses a hand to his head like something just hit him from the inside. Rosie watches, confused. He looks down at her and asks what she has done to him. She has no idea what he means. Then he drops to the ground. Yuria stares. Rosie stares. Both men are on the ground now, looking like they are in serious pain. She has never seen either of them make those faces before. Yuria recovers first. He looks at her and says this is exactly why she needs to come home with him. She tells him again that she likes it here. He tells her she will not for long. She asks what that means. He says she will find herself desperately wanting to return to him, and that he is the only one who can protect her. She tells him she can protect herself. He says she said that before too, and that she always struggled to look after her own body. Rosie has no memory of whatever incident he is referring to. The original Rosie's memories did not cover that part. He tells her she will regret refusing him. Before she can respond, the Marquis' guards burst in, shouting that they found the monster. They surround Reinhardt and bind him in shackles. One of the guards looks at Yuria and asks if he was the one who captured the monster. Yuria glances at Rosie and says yes. Reinhardt is dragged back to the prison, and the chaos finally dies down. The gatekeeper is removed from his post and held responsible for the escape. Ella, who was on duty at the time, is also taken in. Later, Rosie finds the head butler and tells him her plans have changed, and she would like to keep working at the estate for now. Pram says he is genuinely glad to hear it and welcomes her back warmly. She thanks him, and they agree to keep working together. Meanwhile, in the Marquis' office, Argent asks Pram how the prisoner was recaptured so quickly, since it would have been difficult with just the night guards. Pram explains that the young Lord Hertas spotted him, subdued him immediately, and handed him over. Argent asks why he would bother doing that. Pram says he cannot speak to his true intentions, but suspects it was done for the Marquis' benefit. Pram then mentions there was a small incident involving the servants. Argent tells him he does not need every minor detail reported and to get to the point. Pram explains that after the escape, multiple witnesses said the prisoner was specifically searching for a pink-haired maid and that Rosie was pointed out. However, another maid contradicted the testimony and said Rosie has red hair. Argent pauses for a moment and then says that if she has red hair, then she is a redhead. He tells Pram to drop the matter entirely. Since the young lord stepped in to help, they should treat him accordingly. He tells Pram to prepare for the banquet. At the banquet, Yuria sits alone, picking at his food and thinking the meat is tough. But his mind is elsewhere. He keeps replaying his sister's reaction earlier. Her personality, her expressions, even the way she speaks. None of it matches the girl he remembers. She feels like a completely different person. Across the table, Argent thanks him for helping recapture the escaped prisoner. Yuria says it was nothing and that he actually found the whole thing quite interesting. Argent says he is glad, though he hopes it was not too much of an inconvenience. Yuria says he means it sincerely, but what he does not say out loud is the rest of his thinking. Because of that encounter, he got to speak to his sister, and more importantly, he now knows that the escaped prisoner noticed her ability too. That special sensation Transcendentals experience near someone with a rare calming power, he is not about to share that with anyone. As far as he is concerned, he is the only one who gets to be near his sister. That monster needs to be dealt with, and Yuria has already decided he will let him out himself, on his own terms. Back in the kitchen, Rosie is washing plates beside Emily and sighing. Emily asks what is wrong. Rosie says she feels bad about Ella getting dragged away because of the commotion, since it feels like she got caught up in something that was not really her fault. Emily looks at her like she has lost her mind, and asks why she cares about someone she is not even close to. Rosie says they talked sometimes. Emily tells her not to waste sympathy on a girl who tried to throw her under the carriage by telling everyone the monster was looking for a pink-haired maid. Rosie thinks quietly that she probably would have done the same thing in Ella's position. What would anyone not do to survive? Emily shakes her head and tells her she is too nice for this world. Rosie says that is just how she has always been. Emily calls her a liar and says she was completely prickly when she first arrived. She says raising her felt like taming a bad-tempered cat. Rosie asks who exactly raised who here. Emily grins. Then another maid walks in and asks if Rosie is present. Rosie says yes. The maid says she has a message from the head maid. Rosie already feels her stomach drop. The message is that Rosie is to attend to the monster for the time being, until a dedicated maid is found. The reasoning is that since the monster was specifically looking for a pink-haired maid, meaning her, the head maid believes she is not entirely without responsibility for what happened. Rosie tells her that it makes no sense. If anything, they should be keeping her further away from him. The maid says she is only delivering the message, and that any objections should be taken directly to the head maid. Rosie thinks to herself that protesting to the head maid without losing her head in the process is going to be a challenge. She asks when she has to start. The maid says dinner. Rosie realizes that means right now. She picks up the food tray and heads to the basement, thinking she is completely done for. Meanwhile, inside the prison, Reinhardt sits on the ground holding his head. He is bound again. He replays what happened during the escape. The moment he tried to leave with her, something hit him. An intense sensation unlike anything before, like inhaling something overwhelming all at once. His mind went completely hazy, and he could barely hold himself together. He is still dizzy now. He does not fully understand what she is yet, but he knows one thing. She needs to be treated as something worth being cautious about. Not a powerless existence, but something that could genuinely affect him. If something like that happens again during an escape attempt, it could ruin everything. He needs to learn more about her before making another move. For now, the priority is making sure she cannot disappear from his sight again. Then the prison door opens. Rosie walks in. Reinhardt looks up and says they will meet again, Miss Maid. Rosie walks into the prison and looks at Reinhardt. He seems better than she expected, considering what happened. She thinks through everything quietly. He tried to kidnap her, and his escape failed. Apparently because of some ability she did not even know she had. She never wanted to be involved with him like this. She felt genuine sympathy when he was just a prisoner in pain. But a man who will attempt a kidnapping in broad daylight is a different matter entirely. She needs to stay sharp. The problem is that she cannot run outside either. Yuria is out there, and while he is behaving for now, that could change at any moment. For now, staying inside and keeping a close eye on Reinhardt is the safest option. She notices him smiling at her and asks what he is smiling about. He says he cannot help it whenever he sees her. She tells him to eat. She sits nearby while he eats, and her mind keeps drifting back to earlier. It seems she has some kind of ability that affects Transcendentals. If that is true, maybe it could be useful, not just for keeping Reinhardt in check, but for dealing with Yuria too. Reinhardt interrupts her thoughts and asks what it felt like when she collapsed earlier during his escape attempt. She asks what he means. He says it felt like being conquered by a maid. She thinks to herself that he is obviously not going to reveal his weakness that easily. Then again, she does not even fully understand her own ability yet, so maybe he genuinely does not know either. He tells her she frowns a lot when she is around him, and asks if that is just her natural expression. She says it is thanks to him. He says that it is fair, given that he failed his escape. She tells him bluntly that if he had not done something as ridiculous as trying to kidnap her in the middle of an escape, he might have actually made it out. He replies that she is the one to blame for being so beautiful. She stares at him. He says he is only hurting himself and that he feels terrible. She tells him he should be more careful then. He agrees, and says that next time he will put in more effort. She tells him to just leave her alone. He says that is not an option. She tells him to go die and walks out. She exhales the moment she is outside. Then she almost walks straight into Argent. He greets her by name and mentions he heard she would be continuing her work at the estate. She stays quiet. He asks why she is not answering. She thinks that the moment she confirms it, he is going to push for the exclusive maid position again. She tells him yes, due to certain circumstances, she will be staying for the time being. He brings up the fact that she said she wanted to get married. She had completely forgotten she used that excuse. She confirms she still wants to, but says she has not saved enough yet, and has decided to keep working a little longer. He tells her that it works out perfectly, and that if she becomes the exclusive maid, he will pay her whatever she wants. There it is. She tells him she is still too inexperienced for that role, and that she knows her place. He pauses and then tells her plainly that the escaped monster was looking for a pink-haired maid, and that he is fully aware the red hair testimony was not accurate. He asks her directly why she thinks he let it go. Then he asks why the monster was looking for her specifically. He points out that no one wastes precious escape time searching for someone out of mere sentiment. He wants to know if there is something special about her. He tells her to answer him. She says she does not know. He repeats her answer slowly. She knows that will not satisfy him. She thinks quickly and cannot tell him about the scent or any of the transcendental sense details without putting herself in danger. So, instead, she tells him she only encountered him during her assigned meal duties. Then she adds one more thing. She tells him the monster confessed that he likes her. Argent stares at her. Later that night, outside the castle, Aesel approaches the head maid and asks if she is the one in charge. She confirms it and asks if she can help. Aesel tells her his master has a special request and asks for a moment of her time. She glances around and says there are too many listening ears. She leads him to her room. Once they are alone, Aesel tells her plainly. He wants the maid named Rosie expelled from the mansion. The head maid thinks to herself that everyone seems fixated on that girl lately. The rumors about the monster searching for her during his escape, the Marquis, who let the whole thing go without asking questions, and now, young Master Hertas. She rarely turns down work that pays well, but Rosie is clearly someone the Marquis is watching closely. Getting involved could go badly for her. She starts to decline. Asil cuts her off and tells her she will regret that. He explains that he came specifically to her because her position makes her the most capable of handling something like this quietly. Then he adds that if the Marquis were to learn about her son's recent conduct, things could become very uncomfortable for her. She still goes. She asks if simply expelling Rosie is enough. Asil says he would prefer something more than that. He would like her left in a rather miserable state. The head maid thinks to herself that he just said his master liked the girl, and now he wants her broken. Asil corrects himself before leaving. Actually, completely broken would be better than just miserable. He says he will leave the details in her hands and walks out. Meanwhile, Rosie is still with Argent, trying to navigate the conversation carefully. She tells him that at first she thought the prisoner was trying to use her as a means to escape. But he actually had the chance to flee, and chose to come back for her instead. He said he liked her and tried to take her by force. And as Argent already knows, it was young Master Hertas who intervened. She thinks to herself that she has absolutely no idea what she is saying right now. Argent looks at her for a moment and says she must have been in a very dangerous situation. Then he mutters quietly that the monster is becoming an unpredictable variable. That is annoying. Rosie notices something on his neck but says nothing. He tells her to continue monitoring the prisoner and that until he releases her from her duties, she is not to leave. She thinks to herself that the phrasing sounds a little different from his usual controlling tendencies, but decides not to read into it. He tells her that by becoming the exclusive maid, she will be doing him a service, and that he is a generous master who will give her time to think. She asks what happens if she thinks it over and still refuses. He tells her she will find out when the time comes. Then he asks if she remembers why he is being so generous with her. She understands immediately. It is a threat. She thanks him out loud for his generosity and curses him thoroughly in her head. The next day, Yuria sits in his room thinking about his progress. The mining rights application is moving along, and as long as the Marquis approves it, his goal here will be accomplished. Except for one thing. Something about his sister is bothering him. He tells Asil that she does not seem like the person he remembers. Asil asks in what way. Yuria says that for one thing, she wakes up at 6 in the morning. His sister would never get out of bed before noon. Asil points out that living conditions can change a person's habits. He mentions that before meeting Yuria, he used to wake up happily at 9. Yuria tells him he has no idea what he is talking about. He explains that it is not just about sleep. The sister he knew was unmotivated and lethargic in everything. She had a colorless quality to her, like someone who would not care if she simply stopped existing. But the reports about this Rosie describe someone who wakes early, works diligently, and engages with the world around her. That is not the sister he knows. He wonders out loud what could have changed her. The story then pulls back to a memory from the Hertas mansion. A young Rosie drifts through the gardens or lies in bed all day. She has no tutor, no schedule, nothing to look forward to. Then one day, a girl named Dylan accuses her of stealing jewelry. Her father calls Rosie in and asks her directly if she took it. Rosie stays quiet. Then she says yes. Young Yuria watches from the side, convinced Dylan is lying through the whole thing. The father asks why she did it. Rosie says the jewelry was pretty. The father tells her to answer properly. She says yes, father. Rosie never stole the jewelry. Dylan orchestrated the whole thing and used someone else to frame her. It is obvious to anyone paying attention, and yet Rosie says nothing. She could easily defend herself. She is the daughter of the Count's beloved second wife, which means she has every reason to speak up. Young Yuria watches the whole thing and cannot understand why she stays silent. The Count tells Rosie not to let it happen again, but instructs his butler to buy her whatever she wants. Dylan storms out, furious, shoving Yuria aside on the way. Yuria is furious. He exposes Dylan's scheme, has him confined for a month, and feels completely justified. She is his, after all. But then Rosie looks at him with complete disgust, and he never forgets it. Rosie wakes up, stretching and realizing she had another dream. More memories from the original owner of this body. She wonders if Yuria's presence nearby is triggering them somehow. Either way, they are not pleasant. Dylan openly despised Rosie, but Yuria's behavior was something else entirely. Quietly isolating people, cutting off anyone who got close, all while acting like a protector. Honestly, Yuria is far more unsettling than Dylan ever was. Before she can think further, the head maid calls her over and tells her to go help a maid named Lena move some luggage. Rosie already has a full workload and is supposed to deliver Reihart's meal soon. She points that out. The head maid tells her to do it after she gets back and walks away before Rosie can argue. She has a bad feeling about this. She cannot tell if it is leftover anxiety from the dream or something else entirely. She finds Lena, and before she can even introduce herself, Lena brings up Marie and says she heard Rosie was the one who got her kicked out. No greeting, just straight to hostility. Rosie tells her calmly that a maid with no real power could not get anyone expelled on her own, and that Marie was removed because of what she actually did. Lena says she is just asking because of the rumor and adds casually that maybe the same thing will happen to her too. Then she points out that Rosie has been speaking without any formality. Rosie stares at her. She apologizes and asks where the luggage needs to go. Lena says a simple bow is not enough. Rosie thinks about getting on her knees and decides that is where she draws the line. She mentions the prisoner's meal and says they need to get moving. Lena finally tells her to grab the luggage and follow. While they work, Rosie thinks it through. The head maid, pulling her away at this specific moment, feels suspicious. And Lena deliberately bringing up Marie feels deliberate too. She decides to try a different approach. She moves closer to Lena and starts complimenting her skin, saying it looks flawless and asking how she maintains it while working so hard. Lena softens immediately, tells her to drop the formality, and admits she was only teasing earlier. After a long while moving Argent's luxury goods around, Rosie finally makes it to the prison. Reihart looks up and tells her she is later than usual. She asks if he was hungry and tells him she was busy. He says he missed her so much it drove him crazy, and calls her his dear Miss Maid. She stares at him, completely speechless, and thinks to herself that today is going to be a very long day. While Reihart eats his meal, he notices Rosie's finger and asks if she is hurt. She says she got a small injury while moving the Marquis's luxury goods earlier. He asks why she is doing that when she has other duties. She explains that the head maid assigned her to it. He goes quiet for a moment and says he will have to remember that name. She immediately asks why. He just tells her to be careful. Then he points out that it is strange how the head maid specifically pulled the person assigned to his meals away to move luggage. Rosie listens and quietly drops a small bag of candy beside him, while thinking to herself that he is surprisingly sharp. His suspicion matches hers. It would be smart to prepare for whatever comes next. She also thinks to herself that his expression is dangerously handsome, and she needs to stop staring. He looks at the candy and asks if it is sweet. She says yes, because it is candy. He tells her it is sweet, just like her. She stares at him, completely speechless. Later that night, Lena slips into Rosie's room while she is away and hides a jewel inside her wardrobe. She leaves quietly. The head maid meets her in the hallway and asks if it is done. Lena confirms everything is in place and mentions she had to wait because someone was hovering near the room earlier. The head maid tells her she hid it well enough and walks away satisfied. Lena smiles to herself and thinks about how much she resented losing her comfortable position when Marie was expelled. She blames Rosie for all of it. She thinks about how pretty Rosie's face is and how much more interesting her crying face will be tomorrow. But when Rosie walks into her room, she spots the jewel immediately. She is not surprised. She already had Emily watching the room after doing background checks on both the head maid and Lena. She asks Emily where she was keeping watch from. Emily says she was hanging from the ceiling. Rosie stares at her and asks if she is joking. Rosie pieces everything together. Lena would not act alone, which means the head maid gave the order. The person who stands to lose the most if Rosie disappears from her current position is the head maid herself. But someone likely pushed her into this too. Rosie is not going to fall for the same framing trick twice. The next morning unfolds exactly as she expected. The head maid storms over and accuses her of stealing the Marquise's jewel. The commotion reaches the prison, and Reihart asks Rosie if she really stole something. She asks if he thinks she is crazy. He points out that stealing from a noble is a serious crime. She tells him to be quiet. He offers to help her escape. She tells him she does not need his help and pulls her hand away. He smiles. She really does not like that smile. Outside the prison, the head maid is still shouting. She kneels Rosie down and tells her that her true colors are finally showing. Rosie tells her she cannot frame someone without proof. The head maid says she already sent someone to search Rosie's room. Lena walks in a moment later. The head maid asks if she has found the jewel. Lena hesitates and says no. The jewel is not there. The head maid goes pale. Before she can recover, Emily steps forward and points out that another maid also handled the luxury goods that day. She says if they are serious about fairness, that room should be searched too. The other maids agree. The head maid has no choice but to give the order. The search takes only a moment. One of the maids shouts from inside the room that she has found it. Everyone turns to look at Lena. Lena stares at the jewel in complete shock and insists she has no idea how it got there. Rosie stands to the side watching everything unfold, and she is smiling. Lena keeps insisting she did not steal anything. She turns to the head maid and tells her she knows the truth. The head maid says her name quietly but gives no real response. Emily steps in and asks why the headmaid called Rosie out before the jewel even turned up, yet has nothing to say now that it is found in Lena's room. The headmaid tells her to watch her tone. Lena begs the headmaid to say something. The headmaid orders the guards to drag her away instead. Lena screams that she is innocent as they pull her out. Rosie watches calmly. She already snuck into Lena's room while everyone was working and moved the jewel there herself. Judging by Lena's reaction, the headmaid was the one who put her up to the whole thing. She has dodged this trap for now, but she knows the headmaid will not stop. She needs to strike first. Later, Emily is fuming and asks how many times people are going to come after Rosie. Rosie tells her to calm down, then asks if Lena is probably in the dungeon by now. Emily says most likely. Rosie says she needs to speak with her. Emily tells her to leave it to her. Rosie has no idea what that means. That night, Emily walks up to the dungeon gate, carrying fresh bread, and greets the gatekeepers warmly. She offers them a late-night snack. They take it happily. A little while later, every single one of them is fast asleep. Rosie stares at them and asks Emily what she put in the bread. Emily says just a little sleeping potion and tells her not to worry because they will not remember a thing when they wake up. Rosie thinks to herself that she genuinely has no idea who Emily really is. They head inside. Lena looks up and immediately starts shouting. She demands to know how they got in and what they are planning to do to her, and threatens to scream. Emily mutters that she has no sense of the moment. Rosie asks Emily to step outside, so she can speak with Lena alone. Emily agrees but tells her to call immediately if anything happens. Lena tells Emily to get lost, too. Rosie tells Lena to calm down. Lena says she is locked in a dungeon because of her and asks how she is supposed to be calm. Then she blurts out what she really wants to know. Why does the jewel turn up in her room when it is supposed to be in Rosie's room? She stops herself, but it is already too late. Rosie points out calmly that what Lena just said sounds like a confession. Lena stumbles. Rosie tells her she did not come to fight. She came to help. Lena stares at her and asks why she would do that. Rosie says she was genuinely grateful for Lena's company when they first met, even if all she really did was give her some of her time, and that she wonders if there was a misunderstanding somewhere. She asks why Lena hid the jewel in her room in the first place. Lena studies her for a moment and asks directly if Rosie figured it out and moved the jewel to mock her. Rosie asks simply why she would hide a jewel in someone else's room. Lena says that is exactly what she wants to know. Rosie tells her it is strange. There is no way Lena would have hidden it in her own room, which means someone else must have moved it. Lena's expression shifts. She thinks of the headmaid. She says out loud that it cannot be. Rosie watches her piece come together and thinks to herself that they are almost there. She mentions out loud that it was the headmaid who assigned her a different task that day, which was strange for someone in her position. She wonders aloud if the headmaid was involved. Lena's face hardens. She realizes the headmaid was not protecting her. She was setting her up all along, after everything she had done for that woman. Rosie sighs and says, "Poor Lena. What are they going to do?" Lena grabs her hands and begs her to get her out. Rosie says, of course, but asks how they can prove her innocence against someone as powerful as the headmaid. Rosie tells her not to worry. She has been quietly gathering information on the headmaid for exactly this kind of situation. She thinks to herself that there is truly no one to trust in this mansion. Lena looks at her and asks if she can pass a message to the headmaid. Rosie says, of course. Lena tells her to say that she has already handed over certain ledgers about embezzlement. Rosie looks at her and smiles. The headmaid has been embezzling, and now Rosie has exactly what she needs. Enjoying this so far? Comment Rosie below for part 2. Bye now.